All right, you guys, I am so excited. Today I have my dear friend Alli with me. I can't wait to hear from her. So, without further ado, welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. I'm so glad to be here. I still remember the day y'all launched See Saucy. That was an amazing moment. I was there, the whole room was screaming, and it was just so exciting to kind of see it from the very beginning. And y'all have grown so much, and I love y'all's mission, and I'm just so glad to be just a little bitty part.
Yeah, we're so honored to have you. You were one of the first people I thought of when we decided to launch a podcast, just because I know you personally and kind of know everything or some of what you're carrying. So, I'm excited to hear more about that. So, will you just start by telling us what you do currently and kind of your roles that you fill right now?
Yeah, so I graduated with my master's in social work. It was almost 2 years ago. And so I got my bachelor's in social work as well. And currently I'm working at a skilled nursing facility in San Marcos. So I work with the elderly. They're beautiful people. I want to adopt them all as my grandma and grandpa. But it's very much an enjoyable job. I've been there next week, well, 2 weeks from now will be a year. So it's been a very great experience so far, a learning experience, because this is my first time to work with this population and in this environment, especially, in the midst of COVID. We've had COVID twice in our building. So
Wow.
it's been quite a bit of a year since I've been there. So um, I'm enjoying all the learning curves. It's stretched me in multiple ways, and so I can't wait to see what else it has in store for me in this journey.
Yeah. Did you set out to work with the elderly population, or did that kind of just naturally evolve?
Yeah. So, kind of where I started, I had no idea about social work. I started my college career wanting to be a nurse, and so I got my CNA license and I worked in a hospital for a year. And I was like, you know what? I don't really like this line of work, but I like helping people.
Hmm.
And so I didn't know what to do at that point. I just continued with my coursework. And so um, I started volunteering for a mentorship program at a junior high that our church was putting on and sponsoring at a local school nearby. And the person that was launching this program at the school was a social worker. And so I asked her just questions about, how she got into it, how she likes it. And it was just glowing reviews all around. And so when she was telling me about her job and all the opportunities that it can present, I was like, this is where I need to be. Like, social work is my calling. And you just brought me to my calling. I was so excited. And so from that point, I was like, okay, let's switch gears. Let's focus on social work. And so, from that point on, what my goal was is my end goal, and this is still one of my dreams, is to start a nonprofit. Um, I love working with the homeless population.
Hmm.
And so when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I started working with the homeless in Fort Worth. And so I would go out to their camps and I'd try to get them health care or get them identification so they could apply for a job or try to get an apartment, those kinds of things. And so it was really good kind of involving myself, on that field, just kind of going to them, figuring out what they needed. And if they wanted help getting off the streets, I was there. I was present.
Hmm.
Or if they just needed someone to talk to, I was there too. So from that point, I was like, yes, I love this. Let's do it. And so when I moved back to Texas after getting married, that wasn't really a job that was available here.
Hmm.
And so I kind of was just praying that God would present the right opportunity. And so he brought me to this skilled nursing facility.
It's so cool. I love hearing you describe your journey because it's so much like it's being the hands and feet of Jesus. Like you felt so close to those people as you were serving
Oh, yeah.
them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I remember there was one moment I was driving the Catholic Charities bus, and I was looking for homeless people, because that's one day out of the week, our goal was to focus on finding new people that we could get resources to. And so I saw this gentleman, and he was in a wheelchair, and he was in downtown. He had nothing. It was hot. And I'm like, he doesn't look good. So I pulled over and I talked to him, got some information, and he had feces all over himself. And so I was like, hey, look, we've got a shower. Would you like for me to take you over to our office and you can get a shower? We've got clothes. And then we can just talk from there and figure out what we can do going forward. And so that was a very eye-opening moment for me, to embrace somebody that was really in a low moment. Almost didn't feel human for him. Nobody wanted to touch him. He was unclean. And so I got him in our van, got him showered. And once he got out of the shower, he was like, oh my gosh, I feel great. Like, I feel like a human being again. And all it took was for him to get a shower, to feel that sense of dignity and purpose. And he was just a different man from that point on, just having a shower and some clothes. But it took one person just taking aside some time to just show them love and compassion and just see how you could help. So that was a really amazing moment for me that I'll never forget.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds incredible, and just the way you were able to meet the physical need in that moment, because those have to be met first before, emotional or whatever else. So that it sounds amazing, just that you're able to be there in that moment where people are in their lowest, and not treat them less than, but make them feel like, they're a human being with dignity, and that they don't deserve any less just because they're in that state that they're in. It's amazing. So you're here in San Marcos. Tell me what else you have going on in your life.
Oh, goodness. Ellery, let me tell you, girl. Man, well, I have a little girl. Her name's Olive. She's 1 year old. She's just such a joy. I'm
You guys just
so,
have
so
to see
glad.
Olive. She's the cutest little thing ever.
Yeah, she is adorable. Her first word was mom, so I just gotta blurt that out loud. Her first word was mom.
Just take the win on
So,
that one.
yeah, yeah. But about 2 years ago, my husband and I, we launched a church here in St. Marcos. We got married in 2017, and I begged for my husband to move to Texas. I was like, please, you could get a job really quick here. I've got a great job already. And so he just felt like I needed to move there to Louisiana. So I did. And we were there 9 months. And during that period of time, he felt like God was changing his heart, because we were going to do mission work. We had 3 trips all ready to go. And God just kind of closed the door on those trips. And we were like, God, what are you doing? We were kind of in a moment of transition, but we didn't know where God was taking us. And I remember we were in our bedroom just talking, and he's like, I feel like my heart, like God is changing my heart. He's giving me a heart to pastor. I was like, what? Like, are you sure you're getting that right? Because I
Right now
never,
you're getting that?
yeah, I was like, I never thought that this would be my life. Never thought that at all. And so from that point forward, we evangelized until God opened the right door. And we were kind of looking for a church that was already in existence, that, had a pastor but needed a new pastor to step in. And God was like, no, that's not what I have for you. And so we stumbled upon St. Marcos as we were evangelizing. His sister had been here a few times for a work conference. And she said that she was witnessing to someone in a restaurant and didn't know where to send her to a church nearby. There wasn't one in St. Marcos. And so we were in Austin, and she's like, hey, just check out St. Marcos. It seems like a city that needs a church. And so we drove to the city, and we just prayed. We ate at a restaurant, and I found a church for sale that was near the Texas State campus. And we parked in the parking lot and just prayed and just kind of imagined ourselves being there. And immediately it just kind of felt like home. And from that point forward, after a series of events, God just set it up for us to move there. And so my husband, it took him 3 months to find a job. And so I was finishing my social work degree, my master's, and I was watching children on the side because I had an internship and school and everything else going on. And so a friend asked me, she's like, how are y'all paying your bills? I'm like, wow, I've never thought of that. Like, it's God. Like, God is making the way for us, because there was no way I was making enough to pay for a $1,200 rental fee at our place. And so through it all, God just made a way. You know, someone would send a check or someone would bless us financially that didn't really know us. And so, you know, and I had Olive, and after having her, I felt like God really wanted to place me in a job that would make enough money for my husband to not have to be bivocational. He wouldn't have to work an 8 to 5 job and then also manage the church as well. And so I prayed for an opportunity, and I prayed for a specific income. And so God brought this job to the surface, and it's in the city where we have launched the church. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to live in the city. I wanted to work in the city because it's my mission field. And I wanted to just entrench myself with the people. And one of my, I guess my life motto is that just allow yourself to be used wherever you are. And that's something that I feel like we should all do, whether or not, you know, we're working in McDonald's or we're working in a grocery store or we're a nurse or whatever we are. Where God has placed you, that's your mission field. And so I love this journey because it's God leading it. So I don't know what's going to happen next, but I'm excited because God's just taking the wheel. So it's been great so far.
That's so cool, just seeing how God not only, you know, answered your prayer, but did so through your job and through your career, where then it also becomes part of your ministry. And it sounds like ministry is just all encompassing for you guys in every area, including your workplace.
Definitely.
Yeah, that is so cool. And just knowing that God provided for you and your husband in your ministry through that, I think that's amazing. So you have all these different roles, and it sounds like you've had a lot of transition over the last few years, whether it was, you know, your moves, becoming a mom. That's a huge transition, you know, in and of itself. And then with your career too, graduating and jumping in the crazy COVID year. So how have you, you know, balance is a hard word, but how have you juggled all of these different roles?
Yeah, I would have to say that has been the hardest of everything is trying to find a balance.
Sure.
And I feel like once you find a balance, then something changes and you have to find a new balance.
Yeah.
And so that has been an area that I have strived to get better in,
Sure.
is trying to balance work life with church life and family and marriage. And it's a lot to take on. And so I've kind of prioritized my days. In the morning, I'll wake up before work and I'll read my Bible and I'll pray. And I find that is the best way to start my day. I used to kind of end my day that way, but I'm not a morning person. I don't like to get up early. I'd rather sleep in. But I've noticed a difference in my mood. I've noticed a difference in my day when I started off with God. And so I'll start my day off with that, and I'll get ready for work, drive to work, do whatever I need to do there. And then on the way home, I will kind of detox in a way that I leave work at work. And when I come home, I'm fresh and I'm ready to welcome my family. And for me, that's so important because as a social worker, it's a very high stress job. It's very taxing emotionally because all you're doing is meeting the needs of people all day. trying to get them the help that they need. And so having to come home and trying to kind of just detox from the day before I step through the doors of my home is very important, because I don't want to be toxic in my family. I want to, love them, and I don't want anything that happened at work to impact them in a negative way. And so I learned that from a mentor. She said, you know what, when you're in your car, just do whatever you need to do, pray, sing a song, do some breathing exercises, but whatever you need to do, don't take it home. And that has been very important in trying to find that balance. And in regards to marriage, we pick one night of the week where we just focus on us. We put the baby to bed a little early, and then, okay, it's our time.
Yeah.
If the baby wakes up, okay, let her talk herself back to sleep, but it's our time at that moment. And so you just have to find those opportunities and just stick with it. And sometimes, your schedule may get off, and you may have to move your Friday night, date night or whatever it is, to a Monday night or a Saturday night, because sometimes we get too harsh on ourselves because we try to prioritize, but sometimes something may take more of a priority over something else. Like, let's say, we had date night scheduled, but then my child gets sick, and I don't know what to do. And so you have to ask yourself, well, what's important in this moment? My child is sick. I need to focus on my child. We can reschedule this date later. Or if something comes up in the church, someone calls and they're like, hey, I really need you to come over and pray. I'm really going through a tough time, emotionally, physically. I just need some support. And so in those moments, you have to figure out, okay, let's prioritize this moment. Let's figure out what's most important and just make it happen. And so we also have to be flexible and finding that balance with all the things that are going on in our lives, and to show ourselves grace. Oh, man, that can be so hard to show ourselves grace, because it's easy to do it for other people, but sometimes it's hard to do it for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. And setting your priorities, but also having grace in those priorities, not being so strict and so structured with yourself that there isn't wiggle room. I love that, because it kind of combats the guilt that we maybe have sometimes too, as moms and wives, and being in ministry as a pastor's wife and having your job, trying to get it all perfect all the time just invites guilt and shame in. And so I love what you're saying, because I think that's an area we can all grow in, is giving ourselves a little more grace, even if we are, trying to keep all of these different balls in the air and juggling all these things, but knowing it's hard and giving ourselves that room. Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing that. As you kind of been in your journey, have you faced any other just challenges that were maybe unexpected? I know you mentioned just a lot being a walk by faith for you in the last few years. And so have you kind of come up against anything that was unexpected or that you had to work your way through?
Yeah, I would probably have to say my current job has been probably one of the most challenging jobs. And the reason being is I have a boss that doesn't really understand my role as a social worker. And so because of that, he doesn't value it, nor does sometimes he disrespects it. And so I've realized that even though I am a Christian, I have to have self-respect. I cannot allow people to run over me. And so those are one of the things that I had to learn really early on in this career, is that, you know what, I'm going to defend my faith, but at the same time, I'm going to show self-respect. And the way you can do that is by educating people. Educate people about what you do, why you do it, why it's important, because then they're going to have a different perspective. And so in doing so, there was a moment where, my boss had called me into a meeting and kind of put me on the spotlight in front of everybody else and raised his voice at me. And, I asked him to meet with me a couple days later, and I approached him and I said, I didn't really appreciate the way that you spoke to me in front of all those people. And that kind of caught him off guard. Like, here's this young woman, he's an older guy, just kind of like, putting him in check. And it's like, what, I can't allow you to do that to me.
Yeah.
And so as a Christian, that doesn't give people the right to just be rude just because, oh, well, they'll forgive me or they'll show me grace. No, I'm going to show respect for myself. Yeah. And I'm going to show that my position is valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the biggest hurdles that I've kind of had to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also really helped me in regards to the church, really having to try to form boundaries and to show respect for myself.
Yeah.
Going back to, making sure that I'm balancing my life out in regards to family and marriage and the church. And so that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned recently is to continue showing respect for myself.
Yeah. It's really a way of setting your boundaries and showing self-care for yourself while also advocating, it sounds like, for your position and maybe for your clients. Just, this is what a social worker does, and I have a job here, I have a role here, and I'm here to do it, and kind of stepping up in that. I'm sure that's a scary thing, but it's important and valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's one of the things I've learned about social work is it will easily teach you how to confront.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people jokingly, but kind of serious, is that I am a master at confrontation.
Sure.
And it has been so wonderful to have that tool because, probably 80 or 90% of the population do not like confrontation. But I'm like, man, sure, bring it on. We're going to settle this. And by the end of it, we're going to be friends. We're going to hug each other. We're going to love each other because that's what Christ called us to do.
Yeah.
He said, love your enemies. And so, I may be mad at my coworker. I may be mad at my boss or, upset at something someone told me, but, I'm going to love you at the end of it. Yeah. And this is how we're going to get through it.
Yeah.
So
that's truly speaking the truth in love is, I think that applies not only to, scriptural truth, but it also applies to just being authentic in a situation and, hey, that crossed a line for me, or that was a boundary that I'm not willing to break for you, and being willing to confront that, I'm sure, is valuable also as you're serving in ministry, and serving people who maybe cross boundaries without realizing it or with realizing it, but having that ability to stay calm and have the conversation needed. I know that's a really great tool to have. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that. We, at Saucy, we provide scrub skirts. And so a lot of the girls who are wearing our scrub skirts, they stand out in their field, just because it's not the typical choice that people choose. And so I know that you also dress in skirts and dresses at your job. Has that ever had an impact, either positively or negatively, on the jobs that you've held?
Oh, yeah. I'd have to go back to showing yourself self-respect. There was a point in high school where I fell away from Christ. I was trying to discover what I believed, kind of figuring out, why I believed what I was doing. And so during that time, I can testify and say I did not dress modestly. I was, ready to explore the world of dating, and my brother had some friends that were really cute and I wanted to get their attention. So I noticed a difference when I came back to church. God delivered me from all of that. And I noticed a difference immediately in the way that I dressed. Because when I dressed in a way that was not appealing to Christ versus dressing modestly, there was a difference in the way people approached me, spoke to me, and looked at me.
Sure.
And even in the work field, people show you more respect when you come to work and you're dressed nice, you're dressed modestly. There's value there when someone sees you dressing a certain way. And obviously, the question always comes up once they see you a number of times, oh, you're always wearing a skirt. And to me, that's a perfect opportunity to show them Christ. And there was a moment whenever I was a CNA in a hospital, and I was taking care of an Indian doctor. I don't remember his name, but I remember going in his room and taking his vitals, and it was dark in his room. His family was in there, and I was wearing brown scrubs and a skirt scrub. And I'm like, why do you have CNAs wearing brown? Like, what are you trying to say?
Any other color.
But I was wearing brown, and he as I was walking away, he said, can you come back? And so I came back, and he said, he had tears in his eyes, and he said, when you walked in my room, there was just this light that was just protruding from you.
Wow.
And he said, what was that? And at that point, I was able to explain to him what the Holy Ghost was, who Jesus was. And he explained his faith to me, but I was, really pushing, what the reason why he felt like he saw this glow and this light around me. And I believe that contributes to, living a modest life, and walking the path towards God and being filled with the Holy Spirit. That it's so important, because as women, we have this advantage because we get the opportunity to dress modestly and look like a woman and dignity and show that we are respectable of ourselves. And that, like I said, is valuable to people. They may not be able to verbalize that, but you can tell it in their actions. You can tell it in the way they approach you or speak to you. And so I honor every woman that wears a skirt to work. Keep doing it. It's showing the world so much. And you are showing yourself that you respect yourself, and that you are, there's a scripture, it's 1 Timothy 2:9. I wrote this down, and it's in the ESV version, and it says, adorn themselves in respectable apparel. There's that word respect, is that whenever I go to my closet in the morning and I pick out what I'm going to wear, I want to make sure that I am putting on respectable apparel. And so I just, like I said, I love y'all's mission. I love what you're doing. And I'm just so thankful that we have women that are in the medical field, in the workforce, standing strong for the faith and just being a light for those around them.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much to unpack there. Everything that you said was beautiful, and everything that you've said today, I have notes because you've given us such, amazing nuggets. Is there something that you would love to have our listeners just take away, either, a passion that God's given you, or maybe a life message, something that you hold strong to?
Everything happens for a reason. The season that you're in your life, God is setting you up for something else in the next season. And so learn from whatever God is trying to do in this season, because he's building you up. If God had not taken me through different seasons and I had not learned from those seasons, I wouldn't be the woman I am today. I wouldn't be as strong as I am today. And so, as you go throughout your days, just believe that everything you're going through, God has you there for a purpose. You're not going to perish. He's going to bring you through, and the peace of God is going to guide you. And another thing that's kind of just led me is that, whenever I feel like God's taking me through a transition, and trying to figure out what's going to happen next, is that usually God will guide me by his peace. And in regards to that, is if there's an opportunity that presents itself for a career, or in regards to the church, if I don't have peace about it, that's God saying, don't go that way. But if there's peace, God saying, okay, green light, go for it. And so just allow God to guide you by his peace. And I'm just so thankful that you gave me the opportunity to be on here and just to share just a little bit of my life. And I'm just thankful for See Saucy and everything that y'all are doing.
Yeah, so good. Everything that it just speaks life into, I know for me, and I'm sure for everyone listening, just that peace and that knowing that God has put you where you are for a purpose. And you said earlier, wherever God's placed you, that's your mission field. And I think that's beautiful. It's a beautiful knowledge to walk in and reassurance for where He has you. So thank you so much for that. Just to wrap up, I want to ask you a question that we ask everyone. This can be silly, it can be serious, it can be fun, whatever pops in your mind, that's great. All right, so what is saving your life right now?
Oh, y'all, this may sound really silly, but I do not drink coffee every day. I allow myself to drink coffee every other day.
Okay.
And so it's so special to me when I put the coffee in the coffee machine and then I get my little electric frother out. And I can either choose warm froth or cold froth. Just kind of depends on my mood for the day.
Yeah.
But literally, that is such a game changer for me. When I have God and coffee, that's just, man, like nothing's going to touch me that day. It's
unstoppable. I'm with you. That
cheesy,
warm
but it's
mug.
So true.
Yes, something about that routine too. It's just cozy and welcoming. So I love that. But thank you again, Alli. We so appreciate you being here and sharing all of your wisdom with us today.
Definitely. Thank y'all again for the opportunity.